Well, it is that time. It's 2 o'clock, and in the interest of time, so that we may stay on schedule, we are going to get started. For those of you who are on the line, welcome. We understand that today there's another webinar going on, although it's a 4-hour webinar, if you can imagine. So we promise you that today's webinar will not last anywhere near that long, although we do believe that there are several participants who will not be joining us today because of that reason. But let's get started. For those of you who have had a chance to look at the first slide, the While We Wait slide, I'd like to just call attention to it briefly. And we do ask, did you know that it takes a village for margin and mission ignition nonprofits to launch or grow a successful earned income venture? We ask this question because it truly is important for any nonprofit that is interested in engaging in earned income. When we say it takes a village, we like to call your attention to the first 3 members of that village that are highlighted in yellow. Because first and foremost, anytime a nonprofit organization is undertaking an earned income venture, it's critically important to have involvement by the executive director or the leader of the organization, by the board, and by key staff members. The reason for that is because we believe through the work that we've done over time that when you have those 3 groups within your organization engaged in an earned income strategy, that more often than not, the more they are engaged along the way, the better prepared the organization is for change that may occur along the way. So as for those of you who have joined us for previous webinars, you've heard us talking about the importance of having leadership, board, and staff involved. And we encourage you, as you continue to think about your own earned income venture, to make sure that you have that team participating. Beyond those 3 members of your team, we also believe that it's important to have donors, investors, and funders involved in your earned income venture. Why? Well, oftentimes they'll be interested in how your earned income venture proceeds, particularly if you're going to be looking for startup or growth capital to get your venture off the ground. Volunteers. Most nonprofit organizations do have volunteers that assist in a number of different ways, and you may find yourself wanting to involve them in your earned income venture, particularly if you're a smaller organization or have a smaller staff. Community members, they can take many different forms, but potentially engaging them in some way in your earned income venture can be a positive. And then, of course, there's clients and customers, because ultimately, without them, it would be hard to launch or grow an earned income venture. And we have noted here that there may be other stakeholders along the way that we haven't referenced here that for your own particular organization would be of benefit. We do believe in the power of getting connected, and social media is important in the work that we do as part of Margin and Mission Ignition. So for those of you who would like to tweet, our handles are at the Patterson Foundation and Margin_Mission. Please use the hashtags TPF Margin Mission and Earned Income. And if you haven't liked us on Facebook, please go to the Patterson Foundation and No Margin, No Missions page and do so. Feel free to post on social media today or after the webinar. And as we've said during previous webinars, for those who are most prolific, we will have a prize for the first 2 who emerge as the top social media mavens. So welcome everybody. This is webinar number 4, Margin and Mission Ignition, and today's topic is generating revenue is just one of many benefits of an earned income venture. We're delighted that you're here. And as we get started, we'd like to call your attention to this simple but powerful quote. It only takes one action to start a ripple effect. And what we mean by that is that as you look to that heart that's in the image that you see to the left, by undertaking one earned income activity, it frequently leads to many benefits that grow from that. And we'll talk more about that in today's webinar. This does conclude our Earned Income webinar series, fourth in the series. And again, to those of you who have been with us for this webinar journey, we thank you for doing so. For those of you who are new to our webinars, again, we welcome you and appreciate your participation. This is an initiative of the Patterson Foundation called Margin and Mission Ignition. And for those of you who are familiar with Margin and Mission Ignition and the work that we've been doing, or for those of you who are new to it, it's really designed to help nonprofits in our region increase their thrivability. And we do that in three ways. By one, helping you to grow your entrepreneurial capacity, or just become more entrepreneurial in the way that you think and do things. Two, to boost revenue through earned income. And thirdly, as a result of that, to heighten your mission impact. All truly benefits of Margin and Mission Ignition. Your presenters today. I am Michael Oxman, a managing partner and principal in a consulting practice called No Margin, No Mission. And our organization works with nonprofits all over the country to help them think about ways to diversify their own revenue through earned income. We are delighted to partner with the Patterson Foundation. This is our fourth year of doing so with Margin and Mission Ignition, and it's just a pleasure to work with nonprofits throughout the region. I'd also like to have my colleague introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Larry Clark. I'm also a managing partner at No Margin, No Mission. Welcome everyone here today, and I will join you back when we get to the Q&A portion.
So just a word about No Margin, No Mission and our mantra. We believe in the power of entrepreneurial thinking and business strategy to help nonprofit organizations be more financially thrivable, and in so doing to achieve greater social impact. And as I've said, we've worked with hundreds of organizations around the country to help them do just that. Also on the line with us, Josephine Eisenberg. She is initiative support for the Margin and Mission Ignition initiative at the Patterson Foundation. I'd like to call your attention to our chat box, and Josephine will say hello to everyone. A few things to note before we get started. While we share about earned income today, the line is muted, so please note your questions and comments in the chat box as we go. During our Q&A that Larry just referenced, we will answer as many questions and address as many comments as time allows. But again, as we're going, if there's ideas or thoughts that pop into your head, please note them in the chat box. So today's goals are really threefold. As with our previous webinars, we hope that you will gain additional insight into earned income through three goals. Number one being to continue to encourage entrepreneurial spirit and thinking. That is important to Margin and Mission Ignition and the work that we do. Importantly, to understand the many benefits of an earned income venture beyond revenue generation. And then thirdly, please apply the thinking, the ideas, and the approach that we share today to your own organization, and be thinking about it in the context of your nonprofit. So as we get started, we want to ground everybody in what we believe is a reality for most nonprofits, and that is that nonprofits are often motivated to launch or grow an earned income venture for one reason, and that is to generate revenue. Not a surprise, but when you think about an earned income venture or a social enterprise, that's the first reason ultimately that as an organization you may want to launch or grow an earned income venture. But our response to that is that the benefits of a successful earned income venture go far beyond revenue. And we believe, again, through all the work that we've done with nonprofits across the country and as part of Margin and Mission Ignition, that ultimately the benefits of a successful earned income venture will make your nonprofit stronger and more thrivable in many ways. And in fact, in ways that you may never have imagined. So we urge you to think about all the different ways that we're going to share with you during today's session. But before we do that, we'd like to just flash back to our first 3 webinars very briefly to bring those of you up to speed who weren't able to join us for them, and just as a good recap for those of you who have been with us. So during webinar number 1, our key point was that without diverse revenue streams, we believe organizations are vulnerable, and particularly at risk if more than 30% of your funding is coming from a single source. That's why earned income is a good thing for your organization to think about, to diversify your revenue stream. And we define earned income simply as payments received in direct exchange for a product or service. We're often asked if earned income is grants and donations, and the answer is no, it is not. Grants and donations are traditional methods of fundraising, and we encourage every organization to pursue them. But we also encourage you not to become overly reliant on them, and that to look at earned income as another way to add to and diversify that revenue stream. So there's 3 types of earned income. Again, products and services are the most common, and they consist of tangible or intangible offerings that you would sell as a nonprofit organization to clients and customers to generate revenue. Then there's capital earned income. And capital earned income is facilities or investments that are utilized by a nonprofit to generate revenue. If you have a building, if you have equipment, if you lease it out, if you rent out those things, if you have an endowment fund and you're generating interest from it, those are all capital earned income. And then lastly, there's intellectual assets, the skills, the knowledge, the experience of staff that may be used to generate revenue, thought leadership, consulting, and so forth. Which takes us to webinar number 2. And our focus for that webinar was, how do you identify the right earned income venture for your nonprofit organization? Because there are many possibilities. And we introduced a process during this webinar, a 7-step process that starts with taking a look at what are all those potential products, services, capital opportunities, or intellectual assets that you have that you could sell, and then putting them through a process to prioritize them. And we shared 6 key selection criteria. We shared a margin and mission matrix, a SWOT analysis, and a risk and mitigation tool. And that then led to step 6, which after you've gone through steps 2 through 5, if there's more information or intelligence needed, to go ahead and gather that, so that by the time you get to step 7, you can select the most valuable product or service to launch or grow for your organization. We urge you to go back to our previous webinars, all of which were recorded and are on the Patterson Foundation website, so you can get more information about this process and the rest of the webinars. In webinar number 3, we introduced what we believe is an important tool to look at for your organization to determine if you really are prepared for earned income. We call it LWRCC, looking at your organization's alignment in terms of leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, and culture. LWRCC, and very important. And we concluded webinar number 3 with an action step. For those of you who chose to do some homework, we suggested that you share the learning with others in your organization, that you consider your own organization's preparedness for earned income, and particularly by applying that process that we shared of LWRCC, leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, and culture. So that takes us to today's focus. And as I referenced earlier, all about earned income revenue being important and a motivator for launching or growing an earned income venture. But there are also many other benefits of an earned income venture. And we would like to share with you a number of those today. And I think we'd like to just preface this by saying, once again, that through all of the work that we've done with nonprofit organizations, both through Margin and Mission Ignition and in other parts of the country outside of this initiative, we've had a tremendous amount of learning. And through that learning, we've gleaned these key points that we're going to be sharing. So, when we talk about the benefits of an earned income venture, and in particularly related to our work with Margin and Mission Ignition, we've talked with CEOs of participating organizations, we've talked with board members, we've talked with staff members, and here's for the benefits that they've cited most often about launching or growing an earned income venture. There's increased engagement and collaboration, and that's by leadership, by board, and by staff. Again, we can't underscore the importance of that enough, that is an important benefit of this work, that when you engage those three groups within your organization, you have a greater likelihood of success, and it ultimately leads to great benefits for your own organization. Another benefit, entrepreneurial practices as part of your nonprofit organization. And when we talk about entrepreneurial practices, most commonly we see that business acumen and discipline become part of the organizations that engage in an earned income venture. We also find that there's new ways of thinking and doing that become a part of that organization as an entrepreneurial practice. Culture shift. Well, that can take many different forms depending on the culture of your own organization. But most often we do see the organizations stretching and moving and shifting in ways that are different from where they started. And just what that looks like really depends on the organization itself. Operational efficiency and effectiveness, a key benefit, because as any organization that goes through an earned income initiative, and through business planning in particular, you start to see ways of doing things better and differently than you have in the past. And ultimately, that leads to more efficiency and more effective ways of doing things. Systems change. That can take many different forms, once again, based on your own organization. But for example, we've seen frequently that organizations that are more bureaucratic, that are hierarchical, that may be siloed, we start to see that break down. We start to see those systems change over time. And then ultimately expanded outcomes and expanded results, which we'll be sharing in just a moment. As I alluded to in the initial quote in this webinar about the ripple effect, when you think about ripples that form when an object is dropped into the water, we do see that nonprofit organizations experience many positive ripples that emanate from the initial step that they take in an earned income venture. And it's a very good and visual way just to think about how it may benefit your own organization. So let us share an example if we can, and this is quite a detailed example because we feel as though it's important for everyone to understand the multiple benefits that grow out of launching or growing an earned income venture. You may be familiar with Charlotte County Habitat for Humanity. They are based in Punta Gorda. Their mission, just like other Habitat for Humanities, is to bring people together to build homes and communities and hope. They have been a participant in the Margin and Mission Ignition initiative and have done quite well because of a number of reasons, but really because they, as an organization, were prepared for earned income. They launched a new resale store a year ago. And again, for those of you who are familiar with this organization, you know that the resale stores are an important component of the habitats, not just in Charlotte County, but around the country. Why? Well, ultimately, the resale stores generate revenue, which helps them to purchase materials needed to build homes for families, in particular in Charlotte County. So let's start with what ultimately was the first of the ripples for this particular organization as a result of launching the new resale store a year ago. And it started with a business plan. A business plan, we believe, is a critical first step for any venture because it really forces the organization to take a good hard look at all the components that are required in order to make sure that a business venture is thinking about all the right things, from the target market to the pricing, to the marketing, to the competition, and a whole host of other components, not the least of which is to look at projecting financials, revenue, expense, and net income. So for this organization, it started with a business plan. They then, as a result of their business plan, knew that they had startup capital that they had to raise in order to launch this resale store. And it was a significant sum of money, but required in order for them to do all the things that were part of bringing their business plan to life. So just like a for-profit business that's getting started, startup capital or growth capital is needed for a nonprofit earned income venture. As a result of what ultimately was their startup capital that they needed, they were successful in raising it. And why were they successful in raising it? Well, because they took their business plan out to donors, mission impact investors, and funders, and they were able to add 25 new donors and funders and mission impact investors as a result of their business plan. And in turn, that resulted in their best fundraising year in 10 years. So again, another benefit for this organization that started with that business plan. They then knew, as part of their business plan, that to launch this new resale store, they were going to need a building for it. And they did that. They actually took out a loan to purchase a new building to house this store in Port Charlotte. And they, like every other organization that goes through a business planning process, knew that they had to find the right location to be able to launch this store. They also knew that in order to fuel the merchandise that goes into the store, they were going to need a new donation center. So as part of bringing their business plan to life, they actually were able to purchase a new donation center. Staff is incredibly important to an earned income venture. Without staff, without people to take that idea and bring it to life, it's going to be hard to create a successful earned income venture. So they added new staff, including a manager, a cashier, a warehouse assistant, and a truck driver to help manage and run that store. Again, another benefit to doing this work beyond just the revenue. They added volunteers, and as I said earlier, for many nonprofit organizations, volunteers are critical to moving your work forward, to getting it done, and to engaging those folks in the community who have gifts and talents that they can provide to help your organization grow and thrive. This, again, as part of this venture, Charlotte County Habitat for Humanity added 12 to 15 new volunteers per week, not an insignificant benefit as a result of this venture. So what else did they benefit from? Well, they upgraded their POS system as part of their new resale store launch. For those of you who are in the retail business, whether you have a store or any other operation, you know that having the right technology in place is important. So bringing this business plan to life gave them the added benefit of upgrading their POS system, so it gave them the technology that they needed, both on the front end and the back end, to be more efficient and effective in their operations. They then were able to integrate their new POS system with QuickBooks, which again is an important step to be able to make sure that all the front end and back end components are meshing and moving forward with the best efficiency and most effectiveness. Marketing. So another benefit of their earned income venture, another ripple, was being able to add marketing activities that help to increase their visibility, to increase their awareness, and to help engage their customers. So one of the things that they were able to do as a result of bringing this earned income venture and business plan to life was to add a customer loyalty program. There's no better customers than the ones that you already have, and what better way to encourage them to come back, to buy more, and to continue to be good customers than by adding a customer loyalty program. Just one of many marketing activities that they were able to add as a result of their business plan, of their startup capital funds, and their earned income venture. Media coverage. Of course, anytime you're launching a new venture, it pays to look for opportunities for publicity, for public relations, and for media coverage. And that's just exactly what Charlotte County Habitat for Humanity did, as you can see from this article in their local paper. These articles are absolutely essential for getting the word out and for making folks understand and know who you are, where your operation is, and to drive that business. And of course, as we said earlier, the number one reason that an organization does undertake an earned income venture is to generate revenue, incremental revenue for your organization. And in the case of Charlotte County Habitat for Humanity, their revenue to date in just about a year is almost $300,000 from their store in Charlotte County, which is impressive in and of itself, but really an important additional income source for this organization to help diversify their revenue. More importantly, what that revenue means is being able to purchase 3 new Habitat homes that were built with that revenue surplus. So as I mentioned to everyone earlier, the sole purpose of those resale stores is to generate revenue that helps purchase materials needed to build homes for families. And again, this is just the beginning for this organization. There are likely many more Habitat homes to be built in the future. As we think about the new revenue that's been added to this organization's budget, it has ultimately increased their overall organization budget significantly, and that is a direct result of this new resale store. So again, another benefit of and ripple effect from that original business plan that they undertook as part of their earned income initiative. And ultimately, and importantly, what has happened now as a result of all of these benefits I've shared is that Charlotte County Habitat for Humanity has had a request to expand their operation into a neighboring county. Why? Well, they've had so much positive exposure in the community through the media, through the visibility, through all these other benefits that we've shared, that now has taken them yet to another level and another benefit. So as you can see, that there are numerous benefits that grew out of that one initial earned income activity, the business plan, for Charlotte County Habitat for Humanity. And we share these all with you because, again, we want to make sure that you open your minds to understanding that earned income ventures are much, much more than just revenue. So, as in previous webinars, we do urge you to take action. Your homework, should you decide to do that, is to share today's learning with others in your organization, to consider the potential benefits from an earned income venture for your nonprofit organization, or if you already have an earned income venture of some sort, to really start to look at what might the ripple effect be beyond the revenue. And again, by thinking about it in ways perhaps that you haven't in the past and delving beyond just the bottom line and the revenue portion, we do believe that you'll start to see and understand those additional benefits. And we ask you to remember, organizations that are most successful at earned income typically have these three things. Number one, a strong and viable product or service offering. So again, what is it that you have or will sell to launch or grow your earned income venture? Two, and critically important, the desire to dedicate time, energy, and resources to an earned income venture and to do it well. And then lastly, and equally important, does your organization have the preparedness to take on earned income and do it well? Do you have that leadership, willingness, readiness, capacity, and culture? So with that, we'd like to open this up to Q&A. If you have noted questions or comments in the chat box, that's great. If there are any that you have now as you perhaps are thinking about them, please feel free to type them in the chat box. But before we do that, just want to note again, please don't leave this webinar until we share some additional important information prior to wrapping. So I'm going to turn it over to Larry to see if we have any questions or comments in the chat box.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, actually we have a couple to start off with, so thank you for the questions. The first one is from Krista, and I'll read her question first. It says, with overall retail on the decline, is it resale stores still viable in most markets? Chattanooga, and I'm not sure if you must be from Chattanooga, is fairly saturated with thrift stores. Is the key for merchandise to be used or difficult to ship? ? Well, I'll start with the first part of your question, which is the overall retail on the decline. And I think if you take a look at retail, there are certain markets, for instance, online sales, that's greatly on the increase. It's not in the decline. So the big box stores are declining. But if you think about a secondhand store or a resale store, there's a certain type of customer that's looking for something, whether it's their income level, whether it's somebody who's like a treasure hunter. So we don't see that declining. In fact, in Charlotte County, it's increasing. They have seen actually growth occur. And as Mike said, they added, 270,000 in sales, and it's their fourth store that they've added. So they see it greatly on the increase in Charlotte County. And from what we hear, you just really need to look at the other three counties that are within this project and do a little background research. Who's the competition? How many resale stores are there? Is there a spot where there is a good place for a resale store? It's just doing a bit of homework. It's not difficult to ship, and I'll use Charlotte County as an example. They don't really ship anything. You have to actually go to their store, pick it up. They'll deliver it, but they deliver it for a fee. So if you buy a couch at their new store and don't have a truck, for $50 they'll deliver it to your house. So it's kind of an ancillary business that they've created, which is delivery. So hopefully I answered your question. Donna had a question. When deciding to begin an earned income venture, I expect it would be best to select only one service or product and then expand later. Usually when you go through the process, Donna, just as hopefully you will if you move forward with us. You'll have a couple of different earned income ventures, and we take that, just as Mike said on our last webinar, through a SWOT analysis through risk and mitigation. And those, hopefully the best idea rises to the top, and we'll do some due diligence around that, or you can do some due diligence around that. In some cases, once that product or service gets launched, you might add secondary products or services to it. So for instance, I just mentioned one. They opened a resale store in Charlotte County, but they have a small delivery service on the side, delivering, and there's a fee for that. So it's better to start with one, to be focused on one, to know the market for the one, and then look at secondary markets beyond. Krista says, yes, she is. You're in Chattanooga. Donna, okay, thanks. Those are the two questions. Anybody else have a question? Quickly type it in. Good, thank you. Good questions today.
Well,
wait,
oh.
Mike. Sarah says, I'll chime in with another additional benefit, re-energizing existing donors. Sarah Leonard is also a participant on the line, and Sarah has been involved with Margin Mission Ignition for a couple of years now and helps those that we move forward with fundraising and focusing on getting the organizations ready for the fast pitch, seeking that startup capital. And Sarah's absolutely right. It does re-energize existing donors. And in fact, in Charlotte County, just as any of your donors that you might currently have, you might be afraid that if they give you resources for your startup capital, that they won't fund what they usually fund annually, your annual gift, or their annual gift, I mean. And what they found was it's just the opposite. The donors are extremely happy to see a business plan, and by doing so, they've increased their donor base, meaning the same donor is providing the annual capital for their annual fundraising, but they've also funded the business plan on top of that. So they're able to get additional dollars from those donors that they have been very close to in the past. So thank you, Sarah, for chiming in. Turn it back over to Mike.
Okay, well, as with previous webinars, today's webinar has been recorded, and a link will be available for viewing soon on the Patterson Foundation website. So please feel free to share this webinar link once you have it with your colleagues and peers. We would like to thank everybody who's participated today and also in previous webinars for really engaging and being a part of this rich webinar series. Again, 4 webinars in 4 weeks, it's a lot, but it was really intended to be a primer, to be a bit of a precursor for what's to come. So, what is next? And again, for those of you who are new to today's webinar, haven't joined us for previous ones, we want to urge you to continue with us on our earned income journey, because after today's webinar, we will launch our Margin and Mission Ignition Lab series focused specifically on earned income, and that begins on April 10th. What will happen is that for those of you who join us for our first educational lab on the 10th, you will start to get a glimpse into and understand a process that ultimately will lead to the opportunity to participate in an intensive one-to-one engagement of consultation and technical assistance. So today, for example, when we talked about doing a business plan, for those organizations who move beyond the lab series and are able to advance to this full-blown consulting and technical assistance phase of the initiative, you would actually work with No Margin, No Mission to develop a business plan, to implement a business plan, and then to track and monitor that business plan implementation over time. So there's much more to this journey beyond the webinars. And with that in mind, we want to invite all of you to our upcoming lab, again, on April 10th. 10th, and the title is Why Nonprofits Should Care About Earned Income. The lab will take a half a day and give each organization that participates the opportunity to dive much deeper into earned income beyond the sort of skimming the surface that we've done during these webinars. So really taking time to work as a team, and we do encourage a team of executive director, a board member, and a key staff member to think about why they should pursue an earned income venture or grow one, and ultimately think about what would that be, and going through a whole process to ultimately get you to what would be preparing for a business plan. So again, after today's session, you will receive another invitation for the upcoming lab number 1, so watch for that in your inbox if you haven't already registered. If you have registered, but don't have a board member or a staff member or a team of 3, we encourage you to go in and register your small team, because again, that engagement and that collaboration by that team will be really important to helping to ensure success as you move an earned income initiative forward. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to let Larry or myself know. Our email addresses, lclark@nomarginnomission.org and moxman@nomarginnomission.org. Once again, thanks to all of you for participating in our webinar series. We appreciate your engagement, your involvement, and we do look forward to seeing you, to meeting you in person at our first on-site lab, again, coming up on April 10th. So again, thanks to all of you. We appreciate your engagement, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.